Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Chandna. This is Speed News. Let's get started. India slams Pakistan at the launch of the Victims of Terrorism Association Network. In a hard-hitting statement at the UN, India's Deputy Permanent Representative Yojana Patel called Pakistan a rogue state that fuels global terrorism. The Indian envoy pointed to Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif's recent admission that Pakistan has been supporting and it has been funding terrorism for the last 3 decades, a revelation that she said surprised no one. The envoy, in India's right of reply, rejected all allegations made by Pakistan as baseless and underscored India's long-standing struggle against cross-border terrorism. In the wake of the terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam, the Jammu and Kashmir government has ordered the temporary closure of 48 tourist destinations across the Kashmir Valley. The order comes amid intensified search operations and security reviews. Officials said that out of 87 destinations where tourists are allowed to move freely, the destinations declared closed are either part of the active anti-terror search operations or are located in vulnerable spots. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberal Party has won the federal election and is set to form Canada's next government, but it is not yet clear if they would hold a majority in Parliament. This would be Liberal Party's 4th consecutive term in power after Prime Minister Carney convinced voters that his experience in managing economic crises prepared him to confront US President Donald Trump. Final results are still pending for Canada's 343 members of Parliament, with 172 seats needed for a majority. The Liberals won a majority in 2015, but have governed with a minority since 2019. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced a unilateral 3-day truce in Ukraine to coincide with Moscow's World War II commemoration next month. The Kremlin said Putin had ordered a ceasefire for the 80th anniversary of Victory Day from 8th to 10th of May, adding that all combat operations will be suspended during this period. Further, it said that the halt to fighting would be for humanitarian reasons as well as the anniversary, and that it expects Kiev to issue a similar order. Ukrainian President Zelensky reacted to Putin's unilateral ceasefire offer and called it a new attempt at manipulation. In his daily address to the nation, the Ukrainian president asked why there was a need to wait till the 8th of May if Russia wanted peace. Zelensky reiterated his demand for an immediate ceasefire lasting at least 30 days. Zelensky called for increased international pressure on Russia to stop its war amid a lack of agreement from Moscow on a ceasefire. A day after Israel struck a Hezbollah warehouse in southern Beirut, the Israeli military claimed that it had struck over 50 terror targets across Lebanon over the past 1 month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the latest strikes targeted a building used by Hezbollah to store precision-guided missiles. It vowed to stop the Iran-backed militant group from using Beirut's suburbs as a safe haven. In a speech, Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem called strikes a political attack aimed at changing the rules by force. Ronen Bar, the head of Israel's domestic intelligence service, Shin Bet, has announced that he would step down on the 15th of June. The resignation comes a day after Israel's Prime Minister filed an affidavit to the High Court of Justice, where he described the Shin Bet chief as a liar. Netanyahu had also rejected claims made by Bar that he was fired for personal or political motives. Bar's dismissal announced by the government last month but that decision was frozen by the country's top court. It had triggered mass protests in Israel. Israel's military offensive in Gaza has received a severe condemnation from Amnesty International. The rights group has accused Israel of committing a live-streamed genocide. This genocide has been committed against Palestinians by forcibly displacing most of the population and deliberately creating a humanitarian catastrophe. Its annual report, Amnesty said that Israel acted with specific intent to destroy Palestinians in Gaza, thus no committing a suicide. Amnesty's report said that throughout 2024 it had documented multiple war crimes as well, including direct attacks on civilians. The US Navy lost an FA-18 Super Hornet jet after it fell overboard from the USS Harry Truman carrier. As per the US Navy, the fighter jet was lost while it was being towed on ground. No personnel were lost. One sailor sustained minor injuries. Initial reports indicate that the aircraft carrier made a hard turn to evade Houthi fire, which contributed to the fighter jet falling overboard. Earlier, the Houthis had claimed to have launched a missile and drone strike on Harry S. Truman station in the Red Sea. However, the US Navy emphasized that the carrier and its air wing remain fully mission capable. The death toll due to a massive explosion at Iran's Shahid Rajai port on Saturday has risen to 70, while over 1,200 people have suffered injuries. 2 days after the explosion, the fire at Iran's strategically most important port has not yet been fully extinguished. This despite a rescue team from Moscow aiding in the firefighting operations. Satellite images that have surfaced show the devastation of the explosion. Satellite photos show the epicenter of the explosion near Bandar Abbas city. Even as US and Iran continue talks for a potential nuclear deal, France has threatened Iran that it will not hire for a second. It will not hesitate for a second to reapply all sections of European security if it is threatened by Tehran's nuclear program. Speaking at a UN event, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said that France, along with Germany and the UK, was in close contact with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He called on Iran to take necessary decisions to avoid the worst. Barrot warned that sanctions would permanently close Iranian drones. The Vatican announced that the Catholic cardinals meeting in Rome has begun. The conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis. They've agreed to begin the conclave to elect a successor to Pope Francis on the 7th of May. A total of 135 cardinal electors, all under the age of 80, will gather in the Sistine Chapel after a solemn mass at St. Peter's Basilica. The centuries-old tradition will unfold behind closed doors and would take several days, months, or even years. The longest conclave lasted almost 3 years, and several have listed only one day. The one which elected Pope John Paul in 1978 lasted less than 3 days. Cardinals chose Pope Francis in around 2 days. Taiwan detects renewed Chinese military aircraft near its territory. According to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, 27 sorties of Chinese aircraft, 9 Navy vessels and the ship were detected operating near Taiwan. In response to Chinese authorities and activity, Taiwan's armed forces deployed aircraft, naval ships and coastal missile systems to monitor the situation. The incident follows a recent pattern of escalated maneuvers by China around Taiwan, sparking concerns over regional stability. Beijing continues to assert its claims over Taiwan, which has been governed independently since 1949. Four people aged 4 to 18 were killed when a vehicle plowed into a building housing an after-school camp in the U.S. state of Illinois. According to the Illinois State Police, while the driver to the vehicle was unharmed, several others were killed and they were injured and transported to hospital. The cause of the crash is currently unknown and investigation is underway. A 21-year-old Indian student who was missing in Canada for over 3 days has been found dead now under mysterious circumstances on a beach in Ottawa. The student Vanshika Seni, who was pursuing higher education in Canada for the past 2.5 years. According to reports, on April 22nd, Vanshika left home for her workplace but did not return. Efforts by friends and family to reach her were unsuccessful as her phone remained switched off. India's High Commission in Ottawa it has reacted to the incident and said that the matter has been taken up with concerned authorities. And Amazon took a major step into the satellite internet market as it launched the first 27 satellites for broadband internet constellation. The satellites were launched into space from Florida Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The satellites are the first of over 3,200 that Amazon plans to send into low Earth orbit. Amazon's Kuiper is a $10 billion effort unveiled in 2019 to beam broadband internet globally for consumers, businesses and governments. Kuiper is a direct rival of Elon Musk's Starlink business. Residents cheered as power returned in Madrid after a huge outage brought in parts of Spain and Portugal, bringing them to a standstill. Eyewitness video captured the lights turning on buildings with audio of people cheering and clapping in celebration. According to Spain's national grid operator, electricity has been restored to nearly 90% of mainland Spain. After South Korea battled the worst wildfire in its history in March, another wildfire in the southeastern city of Daegu is spreading fast, forcing some 1,200 residents to evacuate. A total of 28 helicopters, 57 pieces of firefighting equipment and 704 personnel have been deployed at the site to combat the fast-moving fire. No casualties have been reported as so far. According to the Korea Forest Service, the wildfires have affected an estimated 260 hectares of land. Residents in South Africa's Cape Town have been evacuated from at least 198 households, including 48 residents who require special care. This as a wildfire broke out in Table Mountain National Park on Sunday, spread the city's southern suburb of Tokai. According to local authorities, the wildfire has not yet been brought under control and that government agencies have mobilized all available resources to combat the fire. While the cause of the wildfire is still unclear, so areas of Table Mountain National Park have been temporarily closed. The dollar recouped some of its heavy losses as investors were no clearer on whether a de-escalation of the China-US trade war was underway, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggesting the onus was on China to start negotiations. Bessent said in an interview that it was up to China to de-escalate on tariffs, the latest in a slew of conflicting signals over progress on trade talks between the world's two largest economies. While Trump insists there has been progress and that he has spoken with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Beijing has denied such assertions. The confusion just gave investors more reason to sell the dollar and it fell sharply against the safe haven yen and Swiss franc in the previous session. Crude oil prices fell on Tuesday as investors lowered their demand expectations due to the ongoing trade war between the United States and China. Markets are closely monitoring the US-China trade negotiations, understanding that deteriorating trade relations between the world's two largest economies could lead the global economy towards a crisis. A recession. Now, the lack of confidence in future demand and the absence of concrete signals for demand revival in mainland China will continue to overshadow oil prices, according to experts. US President Donald Trump's push to reshape world trade by imposing tariffs on all US imports has created a high risk that the global economy will slip into a recession this year. German luxury sports car maker Porsche slashed a series of forecasts for 2025, hit by a toxic mix of weakness in its main market, China, rising supply costs and US tariffs that are disrupting the global car industry. Porsche said US import tariffs at 25% weighed on its business in April and May, and it warned that its adjusted outlook does not factor in the future effects of tariffs. In April, Porsche, which has no US production, said that it has shipped added inventory to the United States to get ahead of prices constant for orders made in March. The car maker, which at its stock market debut in 2022 had a higher valuation than its parent company, Volkswagen AG, it has fallen from grace since. Reuters. Rajasthan Royals 14-year-old batter Vaibhav Suryavanshi made history as the youngest player ever to score a century in men's T20 cricket. He's only 14 years old. He reached the milestone in spectacular fashion, pulling Rashid Khan for 6 to bring up the second fastest 100 in Indian Premier League history. Suryavanshi's century came off just 35 balls. It is the fastest ever by an Indian in the IPL. The teenage left-hander smashed 7 fours, 11 sixes before he was bowled for a breathtaking 101 for 36. His explosive innings powered the Royals to a dominant 8-wicket win over the Gujarat Titans. Donald Trump hosted Super Bowl champions Philadelphia Eagles at the White House, but several players, including MVP of 2025 Jalen Hurts, decided to skip the event. No official reason was given for Hurts' absence, nor for the other Eagles players who also decided not to attend. The occasion held added significance given the history between Trump and the franchise. Back in 2018, during Trump's first term, the Eagles were disinvited from a White House celebration after their Super Bowl win. At that time, many players had already declined the invitation, citing disagreements with the president.